Good afternoon. This is Jeremy Murphy, and I am in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm the creator of the Positivity Patrol, and I'm joined by Ha Tran, published author and life coach from Massachusetts. And we're here today on Veterans Day to talk to you about courage. And I chose the title of Courage Under Fire. There are veterans who have served our country over the past 200 plus years that have given us great examples of courage, bravery, valor. There's so many intersecting common values that I think intersect with courage. But I think a lot of these people exemplify the type of courage that our country was built on and remains built on to this day. That's part of our foundation. But I wanted to start out with a quote by Winston Churchill that I think puts courage in perspective. And Winston Churchill served as Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II. And he said this about courage. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. And I think a lot of times it's the latter part of that we forget. But I think for a lot of us, sometimes we don't have the courage to speak when it's appropriate and necessary. And I think a lot of our veterans have showed that with their actions and bravery over the years. Not just in combat, but I think particularly in combat situations, you have more issues that can arise that need to be dealt with now. So I'd like to start out with something that has maybe never been done in the history of Lab, but I'm going to try it. I think it's appropriate on this Veterans Day to take a full minute of silence for veterans and their families, to remember them, to think about them, and to really figure out how and what we can do to help them in their daily lives and dealing with their needs. So if you'll bear with me, we're going to do a full minute of silence on the record in honor of veterans and their families. Okay, thank you. Wanted to kind of start out with, in order to talk about courage, we have to kind of figure out what it is and maybe define it a little. Sometimes it means letting go of where we are and going to where we're needed. And sometimes that might not be someplace that we are planning on going or necessarily even wanting to go. And I think folks that are in the military that are subject to deployment around the world, they're frequently sent very far from their families for long periods of time. And that's very difficult. It's very difficult emotionally. We need to do everything we can to help these families. But there's a quote by Andre, I think it's pronounced Guide. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. Sometimes we have to let go of what's close and familiar to us in order to discover where we're going and what courage or bravery may be required to do that. Han, what do you think of when you think of courage?
See, courage to me have a deep meaning because see, just like our soldier, it might be a terrifying experience, but they respond to the call of duty. With their country, the commander in chief, and to tell them to go something. When you terrifying, but again you answer to your calling. Is that without courage you cannot do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's there's a selfless, sacrificial nature of this that I think is hard to understand unless we've actually taken those kind of actions ourselves. And for myself, to give you some background, my great grandfather was a World War I veteran. My grandfather was a World War II Navy captain. He flew blimps during World War II. I have a brother that's still an Army officer. I have another brother that was an Army doctor, a sister that was an Army nurse, an uncle that served as an officer in the military, cousins. There's just a lot of military service in our family. And I guess that gets your attention. You think about what the military goes through. And, my brother, for example, has been deployed all over the world, I think 2 or 3 times. And it's been very difficult on his family and ours, and trying to stay in touch with him and trying to figure out what he needs for support and that kind of thing. And sometimes I wonder, I look at people like, I was trying to look at different military people that might be exemplary in their courage that they've represented. And I looked up Audie Murphy, who is no relation of ours, I don't think, but he's really one of the most decorated World War II veterans, recognized by the United States, by France, and by Belgium. And I'm almost surprised he wasn't recognized by Great Britain for something. But you think of people that sacrifice their lives to allow someone else to live, and to sacrifice everything for our freedom. And, I think that freedom gets taken for granted. We travel to different parts of the world. You realize how little freedom there is in China, for example, just to pick a country that I have traveled to and have seen that. But I think it's important for us to, courage is really a fundamental value that I think we sometimes lose touch with, and our lives tend to have some friction with. There are days and moments where we think we have courage, and there are moments where we don't. And I think sometimes we can, if we can find heroes, some of which I think have served in the military, I think that helps us inculcate that sense of courage in ourselves, and maybe sort of wiring that into our daily way that we operate, trying to inspire others. I think people that are courageous inspire others to, rise to the occasion when they're called upon to be the person of strength for people that may be weaker or need some support to lean on. Do you agree, Ha?
Yes. When you were earlier, you were talking about sacrifice. Therefore, to me, when we are observing the Veteran Days, we're talking about the courage to serve. But again, not just the person who served, that is, we are all our gratitude to, but the family too, because it's just like when a son or a daughter or a wife or a husband go on into the report for duty, just like the whole family, just like have to adapt a new life, that's their new normal, and that they have to, because there's a lot of sacrifice. Therefore, if we tip our hat, to give thanks or to our soldier, we have to do exactly the same to their family, because the family will go exactly the same thing.
Sure.
We recognize it because he is a soldier. He carry the gun. He go out there to fight war. But again, the people at home, have as much courage as the person who leaving they home and to go fighting for our freedom.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know my sister-in-law, my brother's been deployed. It's been very difficult for her with, their three children, trying to keep everything balanced and for her to remain strong and courageous, brave, just, to be an exemplary military wife. I think that's, that's something that shouldn't be lost in this discussion, that, the military family sacrifices as much as the person that's deployed. It's a different type of sacrifice. And we become acutely aware of that when our only method of really communicating with this person in the military might be Skype. And you're talking, for example, with my brother when he was deployed for a while, we couldn't even know what country he was in for security reasons, for, to keep their operations safe. And I understand that. And that's, that's something they have to do. But it's very different to, suddenly you can talk to your brother, but you can only talk to him for so long, and 20 other family members are trying to talk to him in the same conversation. But at least you get to, see the person and still connect with them some way. And I'm glad we have, international ways of communicating like that, where we can really touch base with people and connect and to stay in touch. I think that's very important with keeping military members of the military networked, not really networked, but keeping them connected with their families and friends, so that when they come back, they don't have a difficult transition. That return from deployment is very difficult. And so is the preparation for deployment. We talk a lot more about what happens after, but there's a lot of preparation that needs to happen before too. So I would welcome, if there's anyone who is serving in the military or in a military family or wants to talk about courage, please jump in a seat. I'm intending this to kind of be an open forum to allow people to use it as a sounding board. And I know, there are a couple other Veterans Day labs today that are taking place, and, those are valuable too. So please support those as they, when they're scheduled kind of every couple hours today. But I don't know, it's become something I've become more concerned about. I mean, even my father served in the Navy, and, you have, as people retire, you start dealing with VA benefits and things like that for people that are having issues. And we've dealt with some of that with, with my father, with dealing with depression and things like that, and trying to get the VA to assist with things like that and really be there as kind of a, an entity to assist in ensuring that veterans have the best quality of life that they can possibly have, and that their families are kept stable. And that's, that's just something, unfortunately, that's something that a lot of military families are dealing with, post-traumatic stress disorder. How do we handle things like that? And is that directly tied to their courageous sacrifice? I think in a lot of cases, I think it is.
Every of our men go out there, fight the war, and every one of them, different war, they have a different experience.
Sure.
Just like the World War II or Vietnam War or, most recent war right now. Let me tell you, I come from Vietnam, and that I met a lot of soldiers along the way, and I can just speak for myself. I cannot speak for anyone. And one day that I saw, I met, I think this is a commander, and he came to me and he introduced himself that he was in the Vietnam War. And at that point, I took his hand and I said, "Thank you for my war," and I really appreciate that. Because again, I can say that to me because that is entire different. People have a different experience, and some, and then I cannot speak for anyone. So when I said that word to him, tears rolling down, and then he said that that is the first time I ever hear that some, one that say thank you to me for me serving Vietnam, or the first time that I came here and knowing that you appreciate our effort.
Right.
And, that there is very difficult for, because war is not the good thing, not easy thing for people to talk about. Everybody have their own story. And then when I invited to speak at the Vietnam Veterans, and one of the women, she came to me and with, again, tears in her eyes, and she hugged me and she said, thank you very much. I thought that I don't want to come in tonight, but my sister kept on telling me that, go. And then she decided to come, and she said that thank you, because now she knows that her husband did not die in vain.
Yeah.
That's why today is, every year, today is a very emotional day for me.
Yeah.
Because I cannot come and shaking every soldier hand and say thank you for my war, because, or thank you because you fought for freedom. That's why you make it freedom possible for me and my family. So with such a deep sense of gratitude, not to the soldier, but to all the family as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I don't know why it's so easy for us to, it seems like it's easy for us to forget the sacrifices that these veterans have made. Sometimes it takes, unfortunately, I think sometimes it's things like deployments and, someone, or you have the unfortunate situation where people who are serving the military die while they're serving, and then you have the military having to notify the spouse or the next of kin or both, and that's an extremely hard situation for families too. But I think there are grief issues involved that intersect with this. There's pain, there's sacrifice. Sometimes I feel like we sacrifice, but I wonder how selfless that sacrifice really is. And I think when I look at members of the military, I think a lot of their sacrifices seem to be more, more selfless than maybe some of the rest of us are. We just, we get caught up in pursuing our own self-interest and not serving others as we should to the fullest extent that we can. And I think it's just a good reminder to have, to have a focus on others and serving them in whatever way we can to the best of our abilities, and locking arms with them when they need our support and help. And I would really emphasize, one of the most important things I wanted to say today is, if you know or see a veteran or family that's struggling in any way, I would urge you to listen, to try to get them some help. And if you can't find the help they need, try to refer them to someone that can help them, to the VA, to a counselor, to a friend, a pastor. There are countless resources out there to help these families. And I think the difficulties that a lot of veterans are having are somewhat particular to the way they've served, but I think we need to be more in a listening mode, and not just assuming that they're all okay, because sometimes they're not, but we're not listening, we're not paying attention to the signals they're giving us. And sometimes if we are, and we're get more training on that awareness, we can discover when they need help. If they're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder or depression or anxiety, a lot of the in a lot of cases related to the nature of their service.
You are right, Jeremy, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but now we know more, and I think that the acknowledgement needs to be there, the empathy needs to be there, and the caring needs to be there. Right. I don't know what party you are in, what kind of a judgment that you want to make. Just like you said that, okay, they don't see why you go to the Vietnam War or you go to the World War II or you go to Afghanistan. But again, remember those young soldiers that served the country, they fulfill the calling of the commander in chief,
Right.
because they're fighting for the freedom, and that is that means something, because people fought for freedom and die and live for freedom, and to show some love, some appreciation to their effort, because the soldier come home, they have a hard time to adapting to their new life,
Right.
because that we live in the life that changed so rapidly. They came home and they come into the world that they're not even familiar to them.
Yep. Yeah. I guess we all have to be cognizant of, when anyone needs help or sends those signals for help. But I guess this is such a deep subject of, courage involving veterans and their families. I'm sure, we could talk for hours about it. You could fill multiple books with the subject. And still just be scratching the surface. And I think it's valuable to recognize that there are a lot of sacrifices that aren't recognized because maybe they're not witnessed. Maybe only one person sees the sacrifice and it doesn't get witnessed and recorded for posterity. And so I want to make sure that we recognize the sacrifices of all those that have died for our freedom and that they haven't died in vain, that we remember them too, even though we don't have particular events to recall to honor them. But we do respect them for their efforts also. And, I'm sure good historians are going through, documents and pouring through things like that and trying to piece more of those stories together. But those stories are very important, and they're important for families to collect, record, save, and be able to produce into some kind of form to pass on to their to posterity and also to history. It's an important part of history to see that a common thread of courage has run through humanity for thousands of years, and it seems like when we stray from that courageous path, that we frequently fall off course, I think. But if we rise to the occasion and we recognize that courage is important and that sometimes it means doing the right thing, even when it's very challenging and, it could result in the loss of your life or your limb, your well-being, can affect your family and, for many, many years to come. But people being brave enough, I think we all have to be brave enough and selfless enough to make that sacrifice if we're called upon to do so for someone that needs our help. But recognizing who those people are and how we can help them, I think we all need to try to work together more on that. Do you agree?
I also want to urge everyone that to be realistic about that, not just to forego the idea of save the full organizations. If you can help one soldier at a time, one family at a time, and then together with our effort, we can help a lot of people. But if we're thinking that we want to help the whole organizations, and sometimes we're discouraged by what difference can we make?
Right.
Trust me, a warm hand, a gratitude, and will make a tremendous difference. If you see a growing man, a powerful man cry just because he hear me saying thank you. Can you imagine? Sometimes they get longing for that, to be appreciated.
Yes.
To be recognized.
Yeah, and not just on Veterans Day either. Not just when they're wearing their uniform for the VFW recognitions and things of that nature. I do want to recognize, I don't know if, a lot of our readers have probably read, have you read Tom Brokaw's book, about called The Greatest Generation?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah. If any of you haven't read that, I'd highly recommend it. I know there are a lot of books like that, and I'm not claiming it's authoritative, but it really gave me a unique insight into my grandfather's generation, as a World War II veteran. And I think it's important to recognize that, we have soldiers that have served in Korea and Vietnam and conflicts more recent than that, and recognizing their sacrifices also, and their the courage that they've displayed when they've really been put in tough situations where you have to make a split-second choice, and you maybe don't have a lot of time to think about it. But I think time after time, those people have done the right thing, and I think a lot of us put in that situation, may or may not act similarly, but I think we need to think about that as we go through our daily lives, that we have such wonderful examples of courage throughout our history. So I think go ahead.
Jeremy and I, we did talk about the power intention. So, our intention is we try to make a promise to ourselves that we will not want to let our men and women come home and lost in their own country.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them feel lost. Because, again, they come back, to the thing that troubled their mind during the war on the battlefield. They become a different person, and they no longer can relate to their wife, or their children cannot recognize them, because in them they have the demon in them, or something they witness that they cannot share.
Yeah.
If somebody have the urge and the courage to share the story, just stop for half an hour and listen.
Yeah.
And listen with the empathy ears.
Yeah, the listening is so important, and I think there are people out there, there are qualified doctors and counselors that are trained to help soldiers in that situation, or people that have served in the military. But I think it's important to recognize when you've had that significant disruption that you have to find a way to let it go and move forward productively, and sometimes that it just requires a tight circle of support. And I would urge anybody that's watching this live or in replay to be a part of one of those circles. It doesn't have to be for your family; it can be for a family in your neighborhood. There are military support families all over the country supporting people that are deployed. Just, tell these people you can be available as a resource, as someone to listen, a sounding board, someone to give ideas. There are people giving ideas to the VA on how they can better provide veteran support services and things of that nature. But the Veterans Administration is a very valuable entity for people that are struggling in any way, that have served our country honorably. And I think we just need to recognize the significance and the extent to which these people have served, and to honor them by just simply by extending our hand and saying, how can I help you? And if more of us can do that, I think we can really help veterans and their families have better lives.
Yeah, if you can help them, in whichever way you can, it will be great. But sometimes they just want to share their story, because
Sure.
they are the fallen hero. Sometimes they proudest moment, but what can they say when they come home with the broken limbs, and then and then just like have a hard time to find a job, and that is they want to be proud of their achievement. They're proud of what they're doing. But, they have to take a look at themselves, and they said, what do I am proud for, or something. But, take time to listen, hear their story, hear the victory.
Yeah, the stories are important. And I think we have to, at the conclusion of those stories, we have to say thank you and just, allow them to share what happened and let go of it or share it in a meaningful way with their family to help the families understand, how this person got to where they are now and, how we can help them reintegrate with society, especially after the deployment or after some, you have, like you mentioned, you have traumatic injuries on the field that are very tough to adjust to loss of limbs and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know that I really have anything else. I wanted to, I thought this might possibly be a short blab on this topic, and I think it appears that other people might be at the other military support blab that's going on right now. So I think, at this point, I think maybe we should wrap it up.
Yes.
I think it's, I would emphasize that short blabs have value too. And, being able to provide high quality content in less than an hour, I think it's meaningful and valuable. And maybe that's something all of us can work on. Some blabs go too long. I don't want this to be one of them. I want it to be focused.
Yeah, our purpose is done if people who listen to our blab or attending our blab, and just when they see the soldier, just stop and to see if you can do anything to help or just to smile.
Sure.
Because in their darkest moment, your smile can light up their day. Or shake their hand and just say thank you, because and again, the thank you, when you say it have to be coming from your heart. You really appreciate what they do, what they sacrifice for, because somebody they lost their youth when they go to the war and they come back, and that's the great sacrifice there is. You cannot give them the time or give them back their youth, but just do what you can, just to tell them that you appreciate their effort, you appreciate that they have the courage to answer their calling, and then to know that if you can detect something that they can go to see somebody, if they need a ride to go see the doctor or something, do something to show that you care.
Yep. Yeah. Even give them a call, visit them if they're in the hospital or receiving medical treatment. I mean, veterans love to hear from their loved ones, and they don't hear from us enough. And, in fact, I probably should call my dad today and just see how he's doing and, thank him for his service. I'm trying to thank my brother today who's still serving in the Army. I'm sure, he may have to work all day, but that's frequently how military situations are. If you're an officer, you're always on call, always on duty. But I think there's a lot that we can do to help these families that we're just not doing. I think we just kind of lose focus, or we get caught up in our own lives and don't realize how much we can do to help others. And I think if we become more aware of that, we can just improve so many more lives in a meaningful way.
That the act of courage under fire, and then you also that unselfishness they are, right. Because they not even know me, they're willing to die for me, they're willing to lose their limbs for my freedom, right. And then they will do for you too, not just me.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's valuable. You'll recall that John F. Kennedy wrote that book, Profiles in Courage, and some of the people he wrote about were military folks. And then I think Caroline Kennedy wrote a sequel, a more recent version of Profiles in Courage. And the thing I would emphasize is that those Profiles in Courage continue, whether or not there's a book called that. There are always heroes and, profiles and courage that we can seek, emulate, and model our lives after. And you know, a lot of those folks have military service, and I think we need to recognize that. Some of them, granted, may have never served in the military, and I want to recognize people that have been courageous, you know, that haven't had military service either. But I put this blab on this day with the particular purpose of highlighting the sacrifices that the military has made and that their families have made in sacrificing their lives, their you know, they've really given everything they have. They come back from service, and like you said, Ha, that sometimes things are never the same, and they're never the same in a negative way. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they can't find that transition path back to reintegrating in a meaningful way that they feel comfortable with. So we just need to try to be there for those people and to listen to them and their needs and try to figure out how we can help them.
But I need to say one more
Sure.
thing. Do it gratefully, not
Right.
pity, because they don't need your pity.
True.
They need you to appreciate.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point. We have to, you know, I would encourage everyone to try to thank a vet today, some veteran that you know, or families of veterans. Thank them, whether it's verbally on the phone, you know, send an email, send a text message. Thank a bunch of them if you can just make a list of veterans that you know and try to thank them in some way. Just say thank you, and they will be surprised, and and it'll make their day. Some of them it might be the best thing that happened to them all day. We don't know. Some of them that does light up their day, like the smile that you talked about, Ha. It becomes, you know, it becomes maybe the accent. If you do it in person, you can do it with a smile and, you know, continue it with verbal confirmation of it too. So yes, I want to thank all those folks who have served our country and sacrificed their lives for freedom. And I will, since my grandfather served in the Navy, I have a Navy hat, and I'll put it on before we stop the recording. Just I have brothers who are serving in the Army, and they're probably not going to like this part, but I've got to recognize my grandpa as a World War II vet. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and we salute you. Thank you for your courage, for serving as role models for all of us.
I'm sorry, I'm so emotional.
Yeah, it's emotional for me too. Bye.